Yeah. Anyway, enough about him. Enough fucking yapping things that we can't even include in an important podcast. Cast Iron Brains, a podcast that believes that any holiday designed to single out and celebrate one particular demographic group based on nothing more than shameful, disgusting, antisocial acts, often committed in the dark of night, to the benefit of no one beyond the depraved sicko getting his rocks off with little concern for the ultimate consequences of his action beyond whatever momentary selfish pleasure is derived from the act, should be relegated to the proverbial dustbin of history. The instigating events all happened a long time ago, after all, and have increasingly rarely been repeated through the years. If it really needed celebrating, we wouldn't need to set aside a special day for it. We'd just be appropriately appreciative all the time. Thus, this podcast, on this entirely coincidental 19th day of June, is calling for an end to all sorts of holidays. Down with all the special days, Father's Day first and foremost. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
I'm kind of bummed.
Lori's kind of bummed. Tonight is, as mentioned previously, Monday, June 19th, 2023. Juneteenth, celebrated as a federal holiday for, is it second or third time now, I believe?
Yeah, 2 or 3 times now. By the way, you mentioned Father's Day, and happy Father's Day to you and all those people. But I don't recognize any holiday where I'm not getting paid. You know, there's 11 of them so far. This is the 5th on the calendar, Juneteenth.
5 out of 11, yeah.
Yes. But the other one's less so.
So you're in solidarity with this podcast and the mission to jettison all of these silly special days that we have. Also, yeah, Father's Day is just not a big deal.
I didn't do anything.
Lori didn't do anything.
I usually do something. I didn't do anything.
Did the
we were busy.
Did those two things come together? Like, I didn't look. Mother's Day and Father's Day, or did Mother's Day come about and they're like, oh yeah, the fathers.
Probably Mother's Day came
second?
First.
What's that?
I'm sure Mother's Day came first because of the patriarchy. And it's obviously it's an overcompensation thing. We have to have a Mother's Day. The patriarchy just, it's like throwing out like a parade of tyrant kings coming down the street, just throwing out crappy dime store gum to the gathered crowds.
Without mothers, there won't be any of us men. Let's celebrate them.
I'm drinking a Samuel Adams non-alcoholic
They're really good.
IPA, just the haze it's called.
I drank
That's
one
right.
at each of our baseball games. It was perfect.
Oh, nice.
And I didn't even feel weird because it doesn't have alcohol in it. I'm sure other people there have alcohol.
No,
but
you're
I
not
don't
supposed
do
to.
that.
It's against the rules.
Well, I didn't because I don't want any, but also it was great.
And is this the 0% or less than 0.5%? You know, there's always like a.
What does this one say? This one says less than 0.5% alcohol by volume.
You would
I
have
don't
to
know
like
if that
drink a
means
lot of those.
what do they mix it in the same giant vats or something
No, it's
without
it's
rinsing
treated
out
to remove the alcohol, so they can't guarantee that it's completely gone.
Gotcha.
They should give you some other way to frame it. Like, how many of those cans do you need to drink to get a buzz? At like
400.
I don't know if you could drink them fast enough to get a buzz.
That's true. That's actually, there you go. That's the standard. Like, where you cannot possibly drink them fast enough.
But that's true for some people of Coors Light.
Yeah.
Or that, what was that, Michelob Ultra? No, MGD 60? There was one that my
64?
boss would get at the bar because it would be game day and everyone wanted to buy him a beer. And he was like, I have to manage a bar. Like, I can't get wasted, but all these people. So he would say, get me one of my beers, and you'd get one of these. It was a 60-calorie beer, and he couldn't, like,
Right.
Bob-sized person, like,
Yeah.
couldn't drink them fast enough for it to be a problem.
That's good.
Do you know what a stupid instinct that is, by the way, for somebody walking into a bar to be like, hey, guy who owns this bar,
They're idiots.
let me buy you a beer because that makes me feel like a dude in a bar who I know the owner. So my treat to make myself feel like a cool dude is to buy the owner of the bar a beer? What is that instinct? Where does that come from?
I don't know.
Yeah, that is a weird custom. Yeah, or just like a thing that some people do. I don't get it, but
Like, I guess it used to be a thing. You buy your bartender a drink, like, because you want to drink with somebody. And, like, so that makes some degree of sense to me. And also, oftentimes, you're buying a drink for the hot young bartender. You're perhaps trying to impress them in some way.
It was me at the time.
Yeah. No,
I was young.
Yeah. How often were you the hot young bartender when you were there?
They didn't know how old I was.
Yeah. Anyway, stupid instinct to buy the owner
Whatever.
of the bar
Lots
a
of
drink.
people bought me drinks.
I'm sure they did.
there
They didn't have to be hot or young.
there's this book that I'm reading, This Naked Mind. It's like some degenerate drunk who's writing a book about, like, stop drinking. That's the angle. But they go to some length to explain, like, it's alcohol, like one of those things where it's like you have to, like, justify why you're not doing it. Like, it's not true of anything else. It's like if you're like in a social setting, there are all these like random
Sugar.
pressure, like, hey, why aren't you drinking? Like, or like, have a drink, or I'll do the first round, and you're just like, I'm good, and it's never like left at that. It's always like, oh, what are you, pregnant? Come on.
When someone doesn't want cake or cookies,
Yeah.
I'm like, just
What
like
other-
one, just like a bite. No, none. Are you diabetic? Are you suddenly diabetic?
That's true, but
Lori's a fucking pusher. She's such a pusher that she won't eat ice cream unless I'm having ice cream. And
That's
so, like,
not true at all.
oftentimes you're like, I'm not going to have ice cream because you won't have ice cream. And yeah, sometimes you have the ice cream anyway. But I frequently feel pressured into having some sort of additional sugary treat late at night when I would prefer not to.
So good.
That's why the rise of these non-alcoholic drinks makes a lot of sense to me, because it's way easier to just order one of these goofy non-alcoholic beers at your local establishment, and you can continue to socialize. You still, by all appearances, seem to be drinking along with everyone else. They're just as goddamn expensive, and sometimes
That's
more
true.
so for utterly inexplicable reasons to me.
It's because the same thing
the
as
reason
the
that I
grass-fed
have
beef.
this Sam Adams Just the Haze is because I was at the grocery store, and the 4-pack of the Guinness non-alcoholic version was $2 more expensive than the 4-pack of the regular full-powered Guinness. And I, like, in that moment, I was like, I'm not buying an alcohol-free Guinness for $10 when the alcohol full Guinness is $8. So I went to some other part of it. It was like, there's the Sam Adams for the
They're so good.
regular
It's
price.
also not the season for Guinness. You did the right thing.
Yeah.
And they are getting much better at it. I don't know, was it O'Doul's? Like, that was like the only thing I can remember back in the
the
olden
only
days.
one.
Like, well, right? And now there's just so many varieties. It's crazy.
We did have baseball this weekend. The kid is in the All-Star Tournament, which, as we've discussed before, ultimately feeds into the Little League World Series. We had our first game at the end of Saturday, after the opening ceremonies on Friday night, which was my first exposure to the Little League Pledge.
Starts right off with God.
The Little
The
League
what?
Pledge is something that is recited before every official Little League game
Since when?
in the tournament.
Yes.
Not in the regular season, but now that we're in the tournament part of the season, they have them recite this over, so that a person comes on the PA and, like, they introduce the kids. Like, it's very nice. Like, they have the speakers set up, and they're like, now we'll introduce the players, and the kids all run out individually, recognized by name, and they shake the umpire's hand, and they slap hands with each other and all of that. And then they turn them around on the base path there, and they said, please repeat after me the Little League pledge. And it starts, I trust in God. And then all the kids say, I trust in God. I love my country and will respect its laws. I will play fair and strive to win, but win or lose, I will always do my best. Now, the second half of that, I'm all fine with.
Right.
It is weirdly designed there on the front end with the trust in God and respect the laws of my country stuff.
What is with the indoctrination language there? What if you I guess you have the choice of not mouthing that? Like, what if you just like, I don't know about this whole country business.
I don't think they're gonna kick you out of the off the team for not properly enunciating the pledge in full, but it just feels weird. And it's probably aside from my kid, like, saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Which is just one nation under God, which is,
still feels weird.
Yeah.
But at least that one is like it's like separate from you. I mean, like it's just the nations under God.
As
But
a kid,
I
wouldn't say the God part because I thought that you weren't supposed to say God. Because someone told me after I said God one time, someone said, "Don't take the Lord's name in vain." So just to be safe, I didn't say the God part of the Pledge of Allegiance for years, and I didn't understand how everyone else got away with it. It felt weird.
This one,
Lori wasn't clear on what "in vain" meant.
Not at all.
There are people who take it
6 years old. I was not clear
that
on
entirely seriously. I stopped saying the under God part of the pledge when I was like 15 or 16, probably, because I was one of those obnoxious assholes. In fact, I stopped saying the pledge entirely, I think, shortly after that, because I was one of those obnoxious assholes. I still think it's weird to make kids recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
It makes some people comfortable, yeah.
Whatever. We got past the I trust in God stuff, and we played baseball. And it was great. Our first game, an absolute thriller.
It was so good.
We didn't know what to expect from us or from this other team. And it ends up, like, we've played a lot of baseball this past few months. And rarely do you see a game that's like a well-pitched, well-defended sort of pitcher's duel when we're talking about young children throwing a baseball, because they're not very good at it in a reliable sort of way. And even if they are pretty good at throwing the baseball, sometimes they can be too good, where they're just throwing strikes too much in the strike zone, and so that they get hit, and then there's not reliable defense usually behind the pitcher. But that was not the case for us. And we were in a 1-to-1 pitcher's duel going into the bottom of the 6th inning.
Their only run was unearned, though.
Yeah, and their only run was because we made a stupid mistake and threw the baseball around a couple of times and allowed their guy to score. So, I mean, our pitcher was just fantastic, and we get to the bottom of the 6th, and we get a runner on, and he advances around to third, and then we get a base hit to seal the deal, and it was just a thrilling 2-1 victory.
Are there restrictions on the number of pitches? Is that still in play?
All sorts, yeah. So at this age, if you're 9-10 years old, you can throw 75 pitches in a single outing, and then you have to rest for 5 days.
I didn't know that they maybe relax those rules when you're in this post-season kind of thing.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. And then there's all sorts of rules about, like, you can throw 20 pitches and then come back on 0 days rest the very next day, but you can only do that 2 days in a row. If you do that, you're not permitted to throw 3 straight days, no matter how few pitches you've thrown.
Okay.
But it was fun. And then the next day we won again. We won 17-2 in the polar opposite version of the game that we played the day before, which was just awful pitching from both teams. We ended up winning 17-2 via the slaughter rule, which is invoked after 3 innings. If you're up by 15 runs after 3 innings, they just say, you win the game. And that's how we won that one. It was a terrible game, and there's no getting around that fact.
And then we were supposed to play tonight, and we're not. We're doing this instead.
Tonight we were rained out. We had a big thunderstorm come through, and we were supposed to determine, it was going to be the final game of this round was to determine who the number 1 seed would be. It was us, a 2-0 team against the only other 2-0 team in the field, and so we have postponed that until tomorrow, so we'll find that out tomorrow. And it's actually like a very big deal because if we can get the number 1 seed, we will play either a team that I'm confident that we will beat or the same team that we beat on Saturday afternoon. So that would be a great thing to get the number 1 seed. But more important than that, that would put the 2-3 game as what I believe to be the actual 2 best teams in the tournament. And one of them would knock the other one out.
Look at
and
that.
Most importantly,
That feels gross.
They would believe that they would have to use their best pitching to get through that game. So we would see a diminished version of
Look at that.
one of those 2 teams in the final.
But at the same time, we don't really want to win the tournament, do we?
Oh, no, we really want to win the tournament. That would be amazing.
Okay. Schedule-wise, that doesn't really work.
It makes things difficult for our personal lives, but what a cool thing it would be for the 10-year-old boy to go to the state tournament. That would be awesome.
When would that be held? Would that
That
run
would
into
be the-
scheduling
When
issues?
I'm not around.
After the 4th of
More
July.
important, where would that be
So
held?
it would be held July 6th, that weekend. I think
Not 6th.
Thursday
9th.
the 6th is when we would have to depart, and then the tournament takes place over the course of the
That
7th,
weekend?
8th, and 9th, I think.
Okay.
In Abingdon, Virginia.
Right, which is this tiny little town in the southwest
So,
corner
like,
of the state.
Virginia's shaped kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
Abingdon is right there.
I think it's basically
Okay.
Kentucky, right?
No, it's basically Tennessee.
Basically Tennessee.
It's right above Bristol. It is a lovely place. I taught a class there. I love it there. You've seen Big Fish, right?
Yes.
The town he goes through, Spectre, where everybody's just happy. And he's like,
that-
I could stay here forever. And they're like, yeah, you should. It's great here. It's everything you need. It's beautiful. That's what Abingdon is like.
Oh.
Strangely nice.
Is there a reason why they're holding this there? Is there
It just rotates from year to year.
Okay.
So
Can't imagine.
for the same reason that we happen to be hosting the district tournament this season by sheer luck of the draw, basically.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's been fun. It's already 9:30, and I don't even know what we're going to talk about tonight.
Oh,
you
we
know?
can just talk about baseball. Let's not talk about news.
Abe, did you know that America's top-selling beer is no longer American?
That's better. This is a better topic.
Had you not looked it up, would you have correctly guessed what the number 1 beer seller
I mean, I looked
is?
it up because I saw it come across my Google News feed, and I wanted to verify it. But yeah, it's not the one that I would have guessed. Even if you told me, name the top-selling beer in America, and I will give you a hint, it is a Mexican beer, I would have had probably 2 guesses before I got to the right answer, which I would have said, I guess if you're telling me it's Mexican, is Corona really doing that well? All right, I guess so. Those
Pops Howard has anything to do with
those
it.
Snoop Dogg ads are amusing, I suppose. Perhaps that's working for them.
So
We have a bunch of it in our refrigerator.
in the meathead sports, the prize fighting, MMA, UFC, that sort of thing, they push heavily this Modelo. A lot of commercials are about, this guy.
Yeah, during the NFL season too, right? Like there's
I guess,
there's
you're
that
right. They do it.
commercial with that like very aggressive and like manly music that plays during it.
Right.
I don't know how
The
else to
audience should know
explain
that
it.
Bob was doing a manly gesture.
Oh man, stuff. Anyway, Modelo is the correct answer. Modelo Especial is the Mexican lager brewed near Mexico City, which has overthrown Bud Light from the top of the heap.
Honestly, I mean, my guess, without looking at it, I would think Budweiser would be number 1, not Bud Light, but Budweiser. So I'm off on that. But I would not have guessed Modelo was even in the top 5. It'd be like finding out Atlanta was the second largest city or something. There's no way that's true. But I guess it is. Modelo was even in the top 5 before they overtook.
Right.
Bud
Well,
Light.
the news on it is suggesting that it's in large part because a lot of Hispanic Americans drink the shit out of Modelo. So
Right. So is it the Modelo sales are higher than they usually are, or they stayed put and then Bud Light, because of the nonsense, went under their normal?
it's a combination of things. 4 weeks ending on June 3rd, Modelo captured 8.4% of U.S. retail beer sales, with Bud Light falling to second place with 7.3%, according to this data firm. Dollar sales were equally grim for Bud Light during that period. Sales fell 24.4%, while Modelo's grew 12.2%. So it's
Look at that.
It appears that Modelo is capturing some percentage of the falling Bud Light sales. Bud Light sales are falling for what reason, Abe? Why don't you explain to everybody why?
I guess there was a targeted marketing initiative on social media that a bunch of people took offense to, people who weren't being targeted for that marketing, mind you, and they got all carried away. Like Kid Rock started shooting at the Bud Light, and other people started making a big noise about it.
Right.
And
some marketing brain genius at Anheuser-Busch sent a one-off beer can to a trans influencer named Dylan Mulvaney with her face on it.
Right.
So they printed a special can, which I imagine is fairly easy for the largest beer maker in America to do. They didn't print 100,000 of them and send them out to stores for Pride Month or anything like that with her face on them. They just sent it to this one person in the hopes that this one person would then hold it up next to her face while taking a selfie video and put it on TikTok and Instagram and all of that stuff. And they would get some LGBTQ cred at the start of Pride season. And it seems to have backfired spectacularly.
Right. And I guess the logic behind this pushback, because again, this wasn't marketed nationwide. They didn't produce a bunch of these cans, right? It's just like a one-off, like you said, has no impact on anyone else. But it's from what I assume, like people identify with the beer that they buy. Like Bud Light means something to the people who buy Bud Light. And this is not that, and so they took great offense because, like, I drink whatever you give me, right? So, like, if somebody did like a targeted thing to Peyton Manning or some asshole, right? Like, it would have nothing to do with my buying that product, right? Because I don't associate myself with whatever beer's in front of me, right? But for Bud Light consumers, they're not. Oh, just give me whatever. You got Coors Light, I'll get that. Miller Lite, I'll get that. They're like, no, Bud Light, that's me. That's who I am. My pappy drank it, and my whole family drinks it. It's like, it is one of those things. Like, and that's why they're taking offense.
At first, I would have sort of dismissed that sort of thing as ludicrous, but the more I thought about it, the drinking of Bud Light was almost certainly already a sort of political act by these people. Like there is, or at least a culturally relevant act,
right,
by certain people in terms of their.
I mean, it's like the Chevy and Ford
identity
thing, right?
Right, or like, I mean, is a pickup truck? There are some pickup trucks.
Yeah, but these rednecks, will have like I'm a Ford guy and I'm a Chevy guy.
Right.
It's like they're they have tattoos of the logo. And it's like, it's passed down. Like my dad drove a Chevy, and his dad drove a Chevy, and
right.
Like,
and I understood. I've always understood they wanted to buy like the American versions of the cars and not like whatever import. But this is drilled down to a specific brand of American car. It's not
it's specifically Ford and Chevy.
Yeah.
Right.
And they have thoughts on the other. Like if they're one thing, they have like negative opinions of the others. Like, oh, you drive that piece of shit.
And I think that sort of thing is very stupid, obviously. But it's also the sort of thing that has been cultivated by these brands over the course of many, many, many years, right?
Right.
This is a thing that they know and a thing that they focus on to the point of having like commercials where the brands like fucking fight each other, right? We used to have the halftime show with the stupid beer bottles would play football against each other. What was that even called?
The halftime
The Bud
show?
Bowl or something? Like there was they had this thing where for the Super Bowl the different beer brands would face off against each other in a stupid stop motion animation
I'm
thing.
drawing a blank. Yeah, I'm not sure. That was it like a commercial during the Super Bowl? I don't remember this. I remember those frogs making noises. Yeah.
The Bud Bowl, it was called. When was the last Bud Bowl? There were 8 Bud Bowls in all, with the last one recorded in 1997.
Okay.
I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia here. The Bud Bowl was a stop-motion anime. I knew I didn't imagine
just play
this.
the commercial. They're here on YouTube.
Football fans, get ready for the battle of the century. As unbeaten Budweiser takes on undefeated Bud Light. It's Bud versus Bud Light in Bud Bowl 1. Pick up your official scorecard wherever you see this display.
Hey, Bud, super idea. You see the neck on that guy?
Use it to follow the action and you could win. So get ready, get set. On January 22nd, Bud Bowl 1. This time, it's for
This
real.
doesn't look right at all. Let's
Is,
watch the Bud Bowl 3.
Is Bud Ice still
Chris
around?
Berman for Bud Bowl Update. It's been almost a year since that controversial Bud Bowl gave Budweiser
Look
the win
at
in Bud
Bob.
Bowl 2.
They got
I don't know
Bud
why
Light
Berman.
has struck back.
He looks
by
so
making
much
quarterback
younger.
sensation Bud Dry its top draft choice. Big and bold with that rifle
Bud
arm.
Dry, definitely
Bud
not
Dry
a thing
is the
anymore.
coolest thing to hit the BFL since Budway Joe. Will Bud Dry sign in time for Bud Bowl 3? Bud Bowl Update will keep you informed as his all-important story
Okay,
develops.
so this was like Bud on Bud football violence.
Okay.
Not,
Yeah.
Is Bud Dry like a early take on non-alcoholic beer?
I don't think so. I think it just had a different taste.
Okay.
You know what? Because I always thought like the champagne of beers tasted dry. I thought that what's the name of that fucking beer that I don't like? Coors, the High Life beer.
Bud
Oh, the
Dry
hot-
has an even lighter top. Okay. Bud Dry has an even lighter hop top note.
Wow.
All right, do they still make it?
No.
Anyway, the point here is that these brands cultivated this sort of culture war stuff before it became like full-on culture war stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
And to the point where a few years ago, when we were in Greenville and I had forgotten to pack a bathing suit, I realized I needed a bathing suit.
Oh, you went
and-
you just went naked?
Wait.
No.
I asked him, "Did you pack your bathing suits?" And he said, "Yeah." And he had not. 'Cause he's shit at packing. I'm amazing at packing.
You don't have a process valve? You didn't check the box? You just
No,
said
he
yes?
doesn't.
Of course I have a process. My process involved getting my bathing suit out and putting it in a nice, neat pile on a shelf in the closet, and then forgetting to pack from that shelf. It was just... It's a process. It doesn't mean it's a good process. Anyway, I needed a bathing suit, and it was a family trip, Abe, so no, I was not just going nude or just in whatever underpants I had handy.
Yeah.
And it's not like, you know, the Walmart is 6 minutes down the street. It's not like we were incapable of providing ourselves with the necessaries. So I went down to Walmart, and I was browsing their bathing suits, and I realized quickly that I wasn't going to get a bathing suit. Like, your options are get a normal bathing suit, but, you know, it's Walmart, so it's probably not going to be a great fit or anything like that.
Right.
Or get what would be to me a novelty bathing suit and an ugly bathing suit and, you know, amuse the gathered family with my choice of bad bathing suit. And so I got one that had a bunch of, like, silly neon designs that looked like it sort of came out of, like, Zach Morris might have worn in Saved by the Bell or
okay.
something. Like, very, very bright and colorful and not in keeping with my general aesthetic,
Right.
obviously. And then I also saw a pair of
3, didn't you?
board short bathing suits that just had the Bud Light, like they're bright blue, and it just said Bud Light like 47 times all over them. It's like, that's my other pair of shorts. I don't drink Bud Light. I don't care for it. I would never buy it, but I'm buying that bathing
Very
suit.
hipster thing he did there.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's sort of like I'm buying it ironically, right? In the
Right.
same way that I used to have like sincere Christian T-shirts.
We have the stuff still. We just don't display it as
Right, no,
much.
but I'm like I had T-shirts that would like the property of God T-shirt that I had. Like I'm not going to wear sincerely the property of God T-shirt, but I'll wear it around the house, but I'm not going to wear it out in the world.
Just to
right?
see the reaction, people giving you thumbs up. Ah, my kind of man.
Right, but I bought. So I'm saying even I engaged, ironically, in the weird cultural significance of this stupid beer brand some number of years ago. and continue to, because I still have the bathing suit, and I still think it's pretty fucking funny to wear the Bud Light bathing suit. I don't have a very good sense of humor, obviously. But the point is that I think that Bud Light is sort of reaping what they've sown here to a certain extent. Do I think that it is silly to boycott a beer brand because they sent a trans influencer a can with her face on it? Yes, I think that is very silly, that if that is the beer that you drink to get drunk with your buddies around a fire in your backyard, that should not have any sort of an impact on you continuing to do that going forward. But I also think, as evidenced by me buying that bathing suit some number of years ago, that having a sort of cultural attachment to one particular light beer brand over another is incredibly silly.
Especially given our very real life experiment proving they are all the same.
That's true. We had the taste test on the old Bob and Abe show many years ago.
That's right. Totally forgot.
Well, we had it on Mike's deck more years ago.
Right, but we recorded the results for the show, didn't we? Yeah. Anyway, do you see what I'm saying here? That there's like this the double-sided backlash to this. Yeah. I think is ultimately on the assholes at the marketing assholes at AB InBev for not realizing what they were getting themselves into, and like they've cultivated this culture for many years, and then now they're reaping what they sow from it.
So the second point is, they did cultivate this, or took it. Maybe it was like a natural thing that came up. Maybe some NASCAR driver did a lot of the heavy lifting, and there was associations with that, and Budweiser just ran with it, right? Like they didn't cultivate it. Let's say I don't know the origins of this, but they're aware that a good segment of their drinking population comes from that world. This, again, direct marketing thing was basically like, hey, this person has, I don't know how many million followers on whatever platform, right? We can get even more drinkers. They're young, they're liberal, they're whatever. A new market, we can get more, right? So they're thinking, we're not going to make this wider, out of deference to these other bozos, right? And what happened, which I imagine they did not anticipate, is that somebody ginned up this controversy, right? Someone went out of their way to get the picture or image of the, hey, Budweiser sent me this thing, like that post, right? And they shared it with the, the conservative circuit, right? And it gets all these people get animated. Oh my God, I can't believe it, blah, blah, blah. All of it is just manufactured initially. And then it becomes a real thing. And then higher profile types like Kid Rock and others make a big stink because, I can't believe it. Like somebody else is also drinking beer? That can't be. They're getting rid of it at some of their, bars that they have. It just becomes very silly, right? So reap what you sow in a sense. It's kind of hard to say that in this case it's valid. I mean, they should have been aware of it, but I don't think they could have anticipated that we've gotten to the point where people are going out of their way to be offended by something, and they're creating these scenarios.
There are countless stories that you can read online in legitimate news sources every day that reference the public mood on something by referring to a tweet that has 4 retweets by an individual who has 13 followers and follows 250 people on the internet, right? This is something that we associate the entirety of what the public thinks off of sending stupid mid-level journalists to poke Twitter with a stick and see what falls out to get the opinions of the American populace. How did you not know that? I don't know anything about Dylan Mulvaney's social reach except to say that I know that it is significant, that she has a massive...
millions, right?
Right. She has millions of followers online. How did you not know that this was going to end up on The Five on Fox, end up as something that Jesse Waters is going to talk about constantly, Matt Walsh, that piece of shit, talk about endlessly? It's too easy for people like that.
Oh, do you want to talk about the thing that happened with the school?
What happened with the school?
The video that was leaked?
Yeah, I guess we could do that too.
And then, did you see yesterday the stuff posted on the neighborhood Facebook, or did you miss it? Because it was taken down.
No, I saw it briefly, but I didn't get to see the whole discussion around it.
Okay.
This is
Well,
a
there
local
wasn't
thing,
much.
or
Yeah, very hyper-local stuff. There was an article that made its way around. Lori,
Shall I read the email?
short.
Okay. Subject: Media using unauthorized video of Johnson students. Dear Johnson families, a video taken at our year-end school-wide morning meeting has been featured on 3 conservative news sites over the past week, and we have learned this afternoon that Fox News is planning to run the video on a program this evening. The video features Johnson students reading an alphabet book about LGBTQ acceptance. This was a student-led activity that was part of the school's monthly school-wide morning meeting celebrating the end of the school year. The school division did not authorize the release of this video to media, and we are investigating to find out how this occurred. Releasing images or videos of our students to media without division permission is a violation of school policy. That said, our lawyer has advised us that we do not have recourse to request that the video be removed. We are very sorry that this occurred. Ms. Thompson, principal, former, not because of this, has spoken directly with the families of the children who are featured in the video. More about the school-wide morning meeting featured in the video. Each month, grade-level teachers coordinate the morning program, sometimes working with their students. For the June meeting, 4th grade students took the lead to coordinate the program. As one part of the summer celebration, they decided to read an alphabet book about LGBTQ acceptance, which included words like belonging, gender, and kindness. The goal of these morning meetings is to build a stronger and more inclusive learning environment where all students feel safe, welcomed, and respected. Our school division fully supports the Johnson Elementary School leadership in providing the time for our students to connect and learn from one another. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and so I was able to Google up, because I hadn't seen this in my
Bob doesn't read his email.
general... No, I mean, I hadn't seen the original stories until it got sent around by our local school board, and they didn't link to it, so I had to Google around and find it, and I found it. I'm not going to play the video here out of deference to the privacy of the children involved, and I need to hear their voices anyway, but I will read from this article at the Daily Signal, which is apparently some conservative website that trucks in this sort of content.
related to the Daily Caller, or just like a different outfit?
I think it's a
entirely?
different thing. I don't think they're related. An elementary school in Charlottesville, Virginia, encouraged 4th graders to lead a Pride Month celebration of LGBTQ plus gender ideology during a school-wide monthly meeting. Video obtained by the Daily Signal shows. Video shows a little girl at Johnson Elementary School speaking into a microphone and telling a crowd of assembled children, who are all sitting on the ground, that LGBTQ plus stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer. At one point, a man who appears to be assistant principal so-and-so walks through the crowd of children and leads one away by the hand. Cool, another girl says cheerfully. Now let's have a book about Pride Month. And then they go on to read this ABC book where they give the ABCs of pride or something like that. And
They are words like kindness, like G is not for gender.
no, G is, I think, for
Was it?
gender, yeah. But it's not. L is not necessarily for lesbian. B is not for bisexual. But they did say those words at the start of
Gender, yeah.
the presentation. And in the video, it's being led by, as a matter of fact, one of our neighbors, this kid that we've known for some years now. In the background, you see other kids that we've known for many years. You can see our daughter.
Katie's front and center.
You can
Wow.
see
You
our,
see her back.
you can
No
see our
She's not
kidding.
in the presentation. She's just fake. You know it's her because I know. Like
Right.
I only know because she's my daughter.
Right, I picked her out right away. I know my daughter's head from the back, even, obviously. So
Is this? Maybe I missed the first part. Is it like just a parent that took video of this and shared? Like, who recorded?
it seems like it would either have to be a parent who is permitted to be on campus, because
You all are.
we are. If you want to come attend the monthly meeting, then you can say, you check in at the front desk and you say, here we are, and then you can be there. Or it plausibly could have been an employee, although I sort of have my doubts about that. The article doesn't really harp on this fact, but it is the case that this isn't just a presentation by 4th graders to 4th graders. It's a presentation to the entire gathered school I think kindergarten and up, maybe just first grade and up, would come to this sort of thing. I'm not sure. And the school's defense about how this is a student-led activity and teachers didn't drive any of this strikes me as somewhat absurd.
I mean,
and
that's the thing I believe most,
and silly.
Knowing who it was that was doing the reading.
But is that are they raising that point that you find hard to believe because the thrust of the way that it's packaged in the conservative circles is the schools are indoctrinating the kids?
Right. That is the way it would be sent around, certainly on conservative Twitter.
The next day, a client of mine said, "Are you concerned with what your children are learning in their school?"
Wow.
And I said, "No, I'm concerned about what they're not learning."
Right. Yes. Also, I mean, so like, I guess there are, I don't know, a parent or whatever. They're just like seeking like this sort of content to like send up to the people that they follow in the hopes that it gets like used for the 5 or whatever. It's just like just fodder for just people complaining. Because like, you know, no one's taking video footage at the Little League about hey, you're going to say these words. I trust in God. Like, oh, no problem there. Totally fine with that. But
right.
This is...
Obviously, I think that there's a large appetite for getting children in schools saying words that a certain percentage of the population would prefer simply not be on their minds or not be pronounced out of their mouths or not be heard by, like, not putting the question in the head of the 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds gathered, like, bisexual. Like, what 6-year-old needs to be walking around thinking about the word bisexual? It's not clear to me. It doesn't bother me particularly because I think that I could explain it dismissively in such a way that, like, they would just never think about it again.
That's
right?
the thing with all this outrage about, like, parents need to be involved in their children's education. Like, okay, be that.
Yeah, be involved.
It's not easy, but you can do that.
Right.
So, but that's what they think they're doing when they object to this sort of content
I know, but
being...
But when what they should do instead is just at home say, like, that's not cool in this house, apparently. Like,
it's not about not. So this is where I start to defend the people who get outraged about this stuff, and not necessarily from the same position from which they're drawing their outrage, but simply from an empathetic understanding of feeling like things are being thrust upon you that aren't within your value system, that you didn't agree to, and that it's being presented as something that is entirely morally neutral or morally good, and that your position is the morally bigoted one.
That's like just what Abe said about putting God in the Little League thing. It's the same thing. But I've just dealt with it my whole life.
I'm acknowledging that fact, right? So that there's a much less likely, because of our culture, it's a much less likely thing that a bunch of people who've gathered for a Little League All-Star game are going to be put off by "I trust in God" being the first phrase of the Little League pledge that the kids are asked to say. Like, you're just not going to get a lot of people who balk at that, and the ones that do, like me, aren't going to raise any sort of a stink about it, because ultimately I don't care. I've had conversations about God with my child. I'm fairly confident that he's not going to be meaningfully indoctrinated in any way whatsoever.
We don't feel the need to shelter them because we parent.
Right. I'm saying that is not the case for a whole bunch of other people, and it's not just on the LGBTQ stuff. It's on all sorts of things, right? So there are people who would, well, whatever. That's not the conversation I want to have. What I'm saying is that anyone who would be arguing for this presentation to go on as it did by these children to this group of gathered children would not be making the case that we are thrusting our unique value system on these kids. They would simply say, this is a presentation that is about equality and equity and equal treatment and treating everyone with respect and love. And this is all about individual freedom and respecting an individual's right to do whatever they want with their lives. And this is entirely morally neutral, that this is not, in fact, an affirmative attempt to indoctrinate anyone into anything. And any objection to it, even the smallest little bit of objection to it, is a bigoted reaction. That any attempt to say, I just don't want this in the schools because I don't think this is that you should do math and reading and engineering and learn some social studies along the way. Like that should be the purview of the schools. And any of this other stuff, I just don't think it's the place of the schools to do this. That will be reacted to as you're being a homophobe. You're being some sort of awful Christian conservative. I understand why you would react to that in an antagonistic way, which is it's not the case that it's entirely morally neutral. It's sort of a lie to say that this is a morally neutral act in the context of a society that has not, in fact, agreed to these changing terms in any way. And you need only look at recent polling about American acceptance of gay marriage to know that the wider push, the ongoing push for this stuff to become more than just a neutral fact, that homosexuals should be permitted to marry one another and be treated equally under the law, that was fine 10 years ago, right? We sort of it was just up and up and up. That level of acceptance kept going up and up and up. And then at some point since 2016 or so, when everything became that much more fraught, when everything became an existential battle for life and death, and all the gender ideology stuff became a bigger part of this conversation, people have started to turn against it. And you'll see more of that the more that this gets presented as simply the natural evolution of a morally neutral thing. People will push back against it.
When was Obergefell? Was that 2015? Like the Supreme Court decision?
Yeah,
15.
Made it.
Yep,
Yeah,
2015.
So yeah, so you're drawing a connection to like after that, like there's been like a
Well, it was Trump.
Okay.
I think that Trump. I'm not saying that Trump doesn't happen without Obergefell, but a lot of the Trumpening, I think, can be pointed. You can point at Obergefell and say, yes, as I've said many times, this is probably the right moral outcome, but this is not any way to get there. Anthony Kennedy's reasoning is fairly bogus. I don't remember the precise details, but I've written about it in the past. But it is a thrusting of a massive change on the entire nation all at once, in much the same way that the abortion decision was, the Roe v. Wade decision was. I
have two interesting things to say.
1973, yeah.
Okay, one of them, I think it was two interesting things. Well, one of them, you know how we watch these Christian movies, and the people in the Christian movies seem to, because a devout Christian, their whole life, their whole being is about this one thing. It's Jesus and the thing. They fail to imagine that anyone else's life is not singularly focused. So it's like if someone's talking about being gay, that's their whole life. And it's clearly something they disagree with, which goes along with this Christian thing that's that this is the same part. And then I have another thought. So much of Christianity, modern Christianity, is getting people to join and like trying to help people and bring people into the fold. Right. And they can't get in their heads that you being gay is not trying to get me to be gay. Where me being Christian is trying to get you. Like, I wish so much that you were Christian. You should come with me and be Christian. It's great. Like, they can't imagine that someone can just be gay and it's not running their life and they're not trying to recruit. It's
except
just
that
a
what
thing.
they are trying to recruit is all of the pride stuff, right? So you're mandated to participate in some of the, like I'm not in corporate America.
But that brings me to my second thought, which is we live in a Judeo-Christian country. It's like being offended that we're celebrating Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, we're celebrating Christmas as a country. It's a religious holiday. Be okay with it. There's God in the Pledge of Allegiance and in the Little League thing and in the Boy Scouts thing. And it's just fine because it's what our country is. And it's just like you gotta be okay with there being gay people and talking about it. Like it doesn't have to be everything. Just allow it to be. It's part of being American is accepting people for what they are. And also it's kind of a Christian country.
That's fine. Then don't hand over the San Jose Sharks don't hand over your Twitter feed to the LGBTQ organization and don't make your hockey players wear gay pride jerseys or your baseball players wear gay pride jerseys. Don't have that group of trans nuns or whatever that was at the Los Angeles Dodgers stadium show up and make fun of. There's some group like the Little Sisters of Perpetual Outrage or some whatever. I don't know what they are, but it's a group that satirizes the Catholic Church, and they invited them to the Los Angeles Dodgers stadium to be celebrated for Pride Month. And then you look at the actual celebration video, and it's like before an entirely empty stadium, 2 hours before the baseball game started, they announced them and said, "You get this recognition for being who you are. Thanks from Dodger Nation," or whatever. And then that was it. And there are 150 people in the stands. And it turned into this massive thing in conservative media for 2 weeks because of it. It's very stupid. I understand what you're saying about the way that so much of Christianity seems to be about proselytizing, and that maybe they think that because they have to endure the LGBTQ stuff, they're being proselytized at, and that's where they get all of this stuff about groomers like and whatnot.
We are indoctrinating kids and they're groomers. It's like, no, they're not. But I know that that's what you're doing. And that's okay, but that's not what everyone is doing.
Right. I think it's ridiculous to suggest that they're trying to convince a generation to become gay or become sexually deviant or whatever. But I don't think it's ridiculous to suggest that there is a concerted effort to fucking paint the rainbow flag all over everything and to I mean, that is what the activist class is doing something, right? Like it's not like they're doing nothing. There are these people who devote a great deal of energy and fully indoctrinate their kids to the point where it is believable that this is a student-led thing, that a couple of 9 and 10-year-olds would decide that they want to read the ABCs of Pride or ABCs of LGBTQ to their elementary school. Because
the parents are doing it, not the schools.
Right. I'm not saying that the target is necessarily correct. I'm saying that the phenomenon that they're reacting against is 100% real.
So, I do wonder if part of this this pushback, I mean, you're right. I guess one argument, like you said, Bob, is that this is all happening to the people that are experiencing it this way. It's all happening so fast. Like all these changes are happening so fast, and they're trying to push back against it. But like for most of those people, like a lot of the stuff that somebody would find issue with, like, with the Pledge of Allegiance, or like, hey, you're going to recite whatever I tell you about God, or the militarization of like sporting events. Hey, we're gonna have the fucking military do a flyover for some reason, right? Like, oh, okay, and now let's play football. And for most of the people that are either okay with it or ambivalent about it or against it, it's just part of life in America, and maybe roll your eyes and you move on. And basically, it's like they've experienced this many, many times in the past, and it's nothing, and it's no big thing, right? And maybe this is like for the first time, like because they're into all of that, right? Oh yeah, look at that helicopter flying over.
Yeah, that's
no
fine.
objection. The I believe in God thing, no problem. This is one of the
But who are we talking about here? Because I have an objection to the military relationship with the NFL.
Do you post it on Fox News and make a big stink about it, or do you roll your eyes, joke about it with your friends, and move on with your life because you know it's just part of living in America?
Right, and so that's why maybe because like this is like, this is a new thing. Usually everything's catered towards what I'm already into. And now one of the few times where, why not just roll your eyes? Like, this is kind of silly. But like, I mean, if anything, I mean, this is the world your kids are going to be in, right? You think that this is not going to be it? Like at least they're getting ready for that, right? So like, at least this is going to be it. Like it doesn't matter. Your little protest online is not going to stop this, right? This is how it's going to be in 10, 15 years. And so what is, like, I don't understand this. Like, I guess I understand the pushback because, like, I don't agree with it. I understand that part, but just like this is not going to change, though, right? Like, you think this is because I assume, like, going back to the Bud Light topic, people are going to find some sort of comfort in that sales are down for Bud Light, and now that this is going to be a chilling effect for other companies. Like, no, they're going to continue doing outreaches and like. Because there's money to be made in this field. Even if you're like a cynical capitalist, which all these companies are, they don't give a shit about any of this stuff, right? They're just trying to make money. And so they see that there's money to be had pursuing these avenues, right? And
the world that we live in is also demonstrably worse because of the uproar over Target having their pride displays. It's demonstrably worse because of the Los Angeles Dodgers selling special trans pants that allow for a tuck in the I mean, this is absurd that I have to say those words. Though, right? I mean, it's demonstrably worse for having made a Dylan Mulvaney can and sent it out to Dylan Mulvaney. It's worse for trans people in a palpable way because we've had some large percentage of obnoxious people that we don't care for. I don't believe that they are right about anything about the world, but it made them very mad.
But and that was a deliberate thing, right?
You can either choose to say that we don't want to share a country with these people because they're wrong, or you can choose to say it would be better if instead Bud Light, Anheuser InBev, a conglomerate, a multi-billion-dollar multinational beer conglomerate that makes obscene profits on the back of making people drunk and giving them health problems long term and maybe causing them cancer and heart disease, right?
Right.
All of these things. Maybe it would be better if instead they didn't involve themselves with such stupid nonsense as the stupid pride culture wars. Like, what are you doing? It would. I also further agree. It would be better if the NFL didn't have a weird relationship with the military and they didn't do plane flyovers. I think that would be a better world to live in too. And I think you can make a similar argument that it makes the world demonstrably worse that we have this weird militaristic, pro-military, patriotic culture that venerates displays of that sort of power and allows for trillion-dollar defense budgets every single year. I think that's bad. It's bad for everybody. But at the same time, I think it only makes life worse for the people that the activist class think that they're going to be helping by insisting that all of these brands, like if you don't have the stamp of approval from the Trevor Project and from the gay and the GLAAD Alliance or whatever they are, I don't know that that stuffing this sort of stuff down everyone's throats in a way that we've done, especially since 2020. I don't like whose life was made meaningfully better because of the end racism logos on NFL helmets, right? What was improved by all of that? The NBA bubble stuff where they had all of the jerseys that had the anti-racist slogans on them. The players could come up with their own stuff, right? Like none of this contributes to anything besides the culture war, right? And if the end result of all of it is just to make life meaningfully worse for the people that you're attempting to help, like you're not going to change. I'm sorry, as Lori is saying, this is the country we live in. You're not it's why Hillary's deplorables comment is the biggest, stupidest mistake in the history of politics.
Well, was she proven wrong, right? I mean, what do you mean? Like, she was spot on.
She's 100% right, Abe. But she's a politician who wanted to represent 330 million Americans, not 150 million Americans, right? That's the difference. Right. Is that you cannot sustain a pluralistic society if you're going to be at constant war with one another, where one side believes that the other side doesn't think that they should be permitted to exist, or that they will breed them out of existence through generational shifts, right? That somehow conservatism, or this particular conservative Christian outlook, is just a function of age, which I'm sorry, it's not. It's born over and over again, generation after generation. It's never going away. Right. And as things get better socially, as we feel better about the fact that more and more people have civil rights and have the civil liberties, and by the way, we're already there. Trans people can't be discriminated against in the workplace, according to current federal law as handed down by this Supreme Court, right? As handed down by the Roberts Court. Right. So, like, the facts on the ground are that. And so having the stupid culture war fights in the guise of helping these populations, when all it does is exacerbate the divide and makes it impossible for us to live with one another. I agree with you both. They're fucking wrong. They're not going anywhere.
No, they're not going anywhere.
But also, don't go anywhere. Right. Tell your kids when they get home, you're not allowed to be gay in this house. Right. Like, if that's what's normal in this country, you can't be that here. Just like, be okay with it being okay for everyone else and not you.
Right. And also, I mean, I will say, the shoving it down people's throat, like, again, in some respects, I can see that perspective, but in many other cases, people are opening up their mouths and they're shoving it down their own throats. Like, people are seeking this content. I mean, again, the Bud Light thing was not directed at you. You sought it. This Target thing, I would have never heard about it until somebody sought it out, right? People are going out of their way to be offended by stuff, right? And you don't want to get to a point where, like, the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing, because, like, oh, let's make some concessions because they're upset because of some ad or whatever. Like, all right, I mean, like, you can be upset, but, like, you can make an argument whether or not it's good to do this micro-targeting as far as a company goes, right? But that's separate from don't do that because some yokel is going to shoot at a can, right? Like, that cannot weigh into your decision-making process, right? Because at that point, what is the idea? Just like, it almost, I mean, like, if it wasn't like a domestic thing, if it was like a foreign American thing, it'd be like a terrorist kind of thing where you're like, we're going to inflict pain on you to do what we want you to do. Like, and that's not how things should be. Like, and it's possible that, you know, like, all of those numbers with the gay marriage issue over the years, it happened because people were kind of pressing the issue. And people were exposed to, like, gay characters on television, and people knew friends and family who were gay. And eventually people came to some acceptance, and the numbers are what they are. It's not like that happened magically. It's not like people say, well, oh, everybody's cool with gay marriage now because it organically happened. There was effort behind all of that to get it to this point. And so who's to say that we're not undergoing similar efforts in the trans arena, right? I mean, maybe in a few years, people will digest all of this stuff, and then things will... It
wasn't the efforts of Target and Bud Light. It was the efforts of people like Andrew Sullivan making academic and making heartfelt and logical and writing about this for years, right? And convincing people with relevant power and authority to actually make change, right, that this is the sort of thing that matters. It wasn't the fucking companies.
But why are the companies doing it, though? They're doing it because they ran the numbers and they think they can make money off this, right? Like, should companies not be able to do that?
Do they think they can make money off of this?
Why else would they be doing this? You think that
but it didn't
trying to
fucking
lose
work.
money?
Right? No, right. Or maybe they're being compelled by people who will otherwise make their lives fucking miserable, right?
I don't know. Do you think that that's what... You don't think, like, at least with... I don't know with Target's... I don't know what the market share that they're trying to get, but, like, with the Bud Light thing, whomever is drinking our shit is positive, right? And so, like, hey, this big trans character has all these followers, and they're like a influencer or whatever, and maybe some of those people, will buy our stuff. Like, yay!
Right. So in other words, the marketing department at Budweiser was captured by a bunch of young people who were brought into their a bunch of recent college grads who decided that what you're saying essentially is that the market that Bud Light has successfully had a shoehorn in for many, many years wasn't enough, and instead we're going to branch out, and we will forsake that market with the belief that nothing that we say is going to have a negative impact on our ability to sell beer to them, and maybe we can just expand it, right?
Right. And it would have worked if it weren't for this concoction of, like, let's elevate this issue to like-minded people.
Okay, but, like, I don't know. You're poking a hornet's nest when you send somebody with 10 million followers. I don't know. I just don't get it.
It's such an inoffensive thing. I mean, what horn? Like, right? Maybe
I'm not saying I'm offended. I'm saying it's obvious that these assholes and
right.
the proof is in the fucking pudding
right.
over the last 3 months, where it's been all anybody's talked about. No, right?
I get like stuff with people's children, right? I can see how that's like why do you like care that somebody made? Like,
I agree.
Right?
It's very stupid to care, and I think it's very obvious that they were going to care. I'm not saying that they're right to care. I'm saying that the medium is the message. Right. I'm saying that the Neil Postman book explains all of this, right? Which is that we are living in a time where since 2016, or if you want to say since George Floyd, or since Ferguson in 2014, that we've always had these events. All of these sorts of things have always happened, and nobody fucking noticed, right? Because the medium is what matters, right? The way that all of this information was conveyed to us was by big national news organizations, and if you wanted to find out about some crazy shit that you disagreed with, you found out about it when you went down to the corner store to buy a 40 and a bunch of scratch-offs, and you talked with the good old boys down there. Right. It's like, oh man, this is all fucked up. World's going to hell. You hear what they're talking about in the schools? Yep. And then you go home and you fucking fall asleep on the recliner, and your wife is fucking tired of your shit, right? And that's the end of it. Yeah. But now it's something else entirely, right? The way that this information is conveyed, it's all the same fucking stories, but it's an entirely different way of conveying information that works on our brains in fundamentally different ways.
Right. And I would, for the older people, right? People that were around when, they had the 3 major newscasts at night, and there weren't that many outlets, and there certainly wasn't the internet as we know it today. And so where they got their information was limited. I mean, CNN came around at some point, but before that, there wasn't 24-hour access to news. It was like the evening news, you got the local news, you got your local paper, maybe another paper, but you didn't have that many outlets for information. And so I would wonder, like, people who are like, oh, things were so much better then. It's like the sources for your information, most of them are still available. You can still have a news diet of just watch the evening news, right, at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, ABC, NBC, CBS, you pick it, right? Watch, read, the New York Times or the AJC or whatever, right? And don't get into Twitter or social media, right? Because, like, all of the negative stuff that you think of the world comes through social media, right? Like, if you just read an article on the Washington Post, like, it may be troubling news, but it's, like, contained, and there's a variety of different stories. There's, like, lighthearted stuff. There's sports. It's, like, a well-balanced source of news. But on social media, it's just, look at this. Like, people are watching video clips of some school in Virginia. Like, what? Like, how do we get to the point where people, all they consume is just junk stuff that's just designed to get them engaged through outrage, right? And they're complaining about, oh, things are so much worse now. You're the number one reason why things are worse. You are consuming stuff that makes you outraged. Just consume it in the old way. Just watch PBS an hour at 6 o'clock. Let that be your news source and go on about your life. Like, this thing is just ridiculous. People are causing their own misery, and they're blaming somebody else.
But then you get emails from your elementary school about it. Like, you ignore it, and it's still like, hey, this thing happened. Yeah. And then it may be unrelated, but there was a post now taken down from the neighborhood Facebook about, like, people left literally like KKK propaganda, not white nationalist as in the new way, but like, you know, and they took the thing down, so I don't have any information for you, but
there's some, apparently the authors of it were some KKK group out of North Carolina, and they dropped off a bunch of homophobic stuff in a pamphlet in a brown paper bag throughout our neighborhood, and somebody went around and collected it all before most of us ever got a look at it.
Okay.
And then the discussion about it was taken down at some point by the original author of the post, so we never even, like, whatever the content of it was, we never really got to see. I don't know how that relates to this discussion, but...
Well, I mean, it's possible that if this was national news, it's not hard to figure out which neighborhood sends these kids to these schools. It's the one that has the same name and is right next door. So, like, the fact that it's possibly a reaction to something that people saw on conservative media.
Oh, you're saying that this pamphlet might be a reaction to some nonsense that they saw? This story about our school?
I think it probably is.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's plausible.
And, like, that's fucked up. It's not a pamphlet. It was, like, a lot of stuff.
Okay, like I said, I never got to look at it because the cowards took it down. Which, by the way, it's always worse. Like, she said that she wasn't going to post the actual content of the thing that she received because she didn't want to spread the message. It's like, fuck you, lady. You don't, like, you think I'm susceptible to it or something? Like, what are you talking about?
Well, no, but that's the same thing as, like, not saying the name of the killer instead of saying the name
fuck
of
that.
Oh,
like,
I think it's very similar.
None of these people actually think they're convincing anyone of anything anyway.
Ashley got some. Go ask her.
They're all just, like, excited. They're getting hard over the idea that they're going to offend somebody who will say, I'm not even going to dignify this by allowing anyone to see what the actual content of it is. Like, what are you talking about? Like, fucking, we are all adults here. We can have this conversation and figure it out together.
Right.
I don't know. I know it sounds like I'm, like, defending the people who are offended over stupid things, but I'm really not. I'm just acknowledging that they're not going anywhere. And like we will, and the fact that we live in the society now, we live in a world that is suffuse. Like, Abe, you say you can have whatever diet you want. You could live a much less outrage-filled existence if you choose to. I agree with you. Most people won't, right? But
that's by design in many ways, right?
Right, it's by design because these things are in the same way that, like, the diet and food industry is, like, yeah, you could eat just broccoli and spinach and kale and get your protein from sustainable sources that don't involve a lot of red meat, and you could do all of the right things. And that would be great for the 3% of the population who does that, right?
Yeah.
But by the numbers, what humans do is they do the wrong thing because it's easier and because it feels better. Right. And it's just what they'll and not because, like, the outrage literally feels better, right? Like, the way that the chemicals work in your brain, you're getting off on it. I am as susceptible to it as anybody.
Everyone is.
Have a fucking podcast. I love to yell about things that piss me off. So do you asshole. That's why you're here. You love, also, Abe, you love to see me yell about things that piss me off. You get a great big kick out of it. Even when especially when you think I'm crazy and wrong about it, right? Like, it's fun. It feels good.
Yeah.
I get it. So people aren't going to stop doing the thing, right? Which is why what matters is the extent to which you can, if anyone, no one individual can, but we can collectively have an impact on the tools that we have at our disposal, right? And I don't know, I brought up the postman thing because it felt relevant, but I don't know that with these huge corporations that control all of these things, that set the algorithms up, that are invested in knowing everything that they possibly can about us, at what point does it become an utterly absurd battle in an attempt to regain some amount of collective control over the way that the world is?
Right.
we can do what we want on an individual basis. You fucking tend your garden. You plant your garden in your backyard, and you try to do the best you can with it. You make yourself a saner person. But the world's going to continue to fall apart at the same time that the world is basically fine.
Right.
Ironically
fine.
enough.
Mostly fine, by the way. Also, earlier you were saying, Bob, that they're not going away, like meaning the conservative side of things, and that's true. But no one's going away, right? That's why I it's like you can't change what's happening around you. You can change how you operate in that world.
Right, but the difference is that Fox and the Republicans, and I think the Republican Party writ large, is thrilled to be the 35 or 40%, right? They are excited about that. They are happy to just be the stick in the mud, to just be the intransigent assholes, to just continue to exist.
Right.
They don't need any more than that. If they felt a need for more than that, they would have shuffled Trump off the scene at any point during the many opportunities that they've had to shuffle Trump off the scene over the course of the last few years.
They've been trying to shuffle him off, but like he's too dominant a force to shuffle him off.
Who's the they? I don't know.
Fox News in this example, right? I mean, they have tried to turn the page and do whatever, but like this guy's... People are into this guy. Like, he just sucks all the oxygen, right? And so there are more and more candidates. I think I was, surprised when you mentioned months ago how you wouldn't be surprised if we got to, 17 GOP candidates, and we're, at, 11, 12 now already. We may see some more by the end of this year. And all of them, anytime I see them on the Sunday talk shows or anywhere else, they're asked about Trump, right? Whomever it is, DeSantis, what about this Trump guy? Like Christie, well, what are you going to do about Trump? Like, everybody, it's Trump. And so there's Asa Hutchinson and Christie decidedly against him, and everybody else is just kind of carrying water for him some of the time, and then they're light, gentle criticisms at the other time. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. Everything is just centered around one person. He is the galvanizing force in the primary, and he'll be the galvanizing force in the general, right? Which, to be clear,
the existence of you in the race is a rebuke of Trump, right? Right. Whether you're willing to actually say, I think Trump is great and was great for our country, and we should be done with. But we should be done with him. If you're not, even though you're not willing to say that, the fact of your candidacy to be the Republican nominee for president is an explicit rejection of the idea that Donald Trump should be the next president of the United States. And it's weird that nobody seems to recognize that fact. Right?
And they're not even there are all these ready-made attacks on him, and they're not taking any of them because you'd be making concessions or you would be agreeing with the other side.
Right, because they all secretly just want him to die,
right?
And then they can be Trump. Right. They don't want to beat Trump; they want God to defeat Trump, and then they can just take over.
That seems to be it must be, because there's no other strategy. You think start attacking him now, kind of break him down a little bit, eat into his seemingly insurmountable lead, but if he's at 50 plus and the next person is at 20, there's a 30-point gap between number one and number two, and everybody else is just fighting for scraps. They're just eating into each other's leads, right? You're basically kind of making it even easier for Trump to win. And so your presence in the race does nothing other than, unless they're just, half of them, maybe they're just vying for VP, right? Because it's not going to be Pence, right? So there's going to be a slot for somebody. So maybe half of these people are just vying for that. But it just doesn't. I don't understand the logic.
You said it's not going to be Pence. He was on Meet the Press this weekend. Did you watch that interview?
I did. Yeah, there was Chuck Todd. They had a little interview with him.
I mean, I've been stopped in airports and grocery stores and gas stations by Americans of every political persuasion who thanked me for my service to the country.
How many of them were wearing MAGA hats when they
and particularly thanked me for the stand that I took on that tragic day.
But are people that wear MAGA hats doing that
Look,
to you?
I I know the people in our movement, and I can honestly tell you that they're some of the best people in this country. They love America, and they love our Constitution. And I have every confidence as we carry our campaign forward.
So I got an image in my head when he is talking lovingly and respectfully about the people in his movement. Yeah. Listen, Chuck, I know the people in our movement. They love this country. They love this Constitution. And the picture in my head was of one of these assholes, like just playing with their own shit. They took it, furiously dumping on the floor and then picking it up and looking at it in their hands, just playing in shit like a stupid monkey playing in shit. And Mike Pence is like, I have so much respect for the people in this movement. Let me tell you, these same assholes who came to the Capitol on January 6th with a fucking gallows and wanted to see me hanged, I have so much respect for the people. Like, what are you talking about, Mike Pence? I know that I just said the thing that I said about it was dumb for Hillary Clinton to call these people a bunch of deplorables. But what would they have to do to prove to Mike Pence that the movement that he imagines he was at the head of, he was not, in fact, the reason that any of that was going on? What more proof do you need, you fucking maniac, than the last 6 years? I don't get it.
Is there any politician currently who has the message and brand discipline of Mike Pence? Because, like, no matter what you throw at him, he has that stupid, like, pious, like, consideration face, and he'll, like, reset, like, he'll reframe whatever you throw at him.
Never answers the question.
Right.
Never.
Ever.
First rule of being a politician, don't answer the question.
But, you know,
He's
other
never
people,
broken it.
You're right. Other people inevitably will give in and try to directly this is I'm gonna swing at this. You know, I know my handlers telling me don't get sucked in, and they won't for like 3 or 4 questions, but then somebody will throw in a question and they'll I can do great things with this, and then they get sucked in because now you ask this question and there'll be another. You try to answer one question and they'll ask you follow-up questions. But like with Pence in that interview with Chuck Todd, he was basically kind of asking him like simple questions like, look, the MAGA people, right, don't like you because the head of the MAGA party, Trump, doesn't like you, right? So, like, in order for you to be the head of the party, right, to be the GOP nominee for president, you have to win over those people. Like, how are you going to do that? And he didn't really have an answer. Like, they don't like you at all. Like, what do you mean? Like, why would they vote for you? And he never answers it. He just sticks to his message. And so I don't know who this Pence coalition includes. Like, who? Like, I don't get it.
Someone who thinks, as he apparently does, that they did a great job for 4 years, and then one fateful day in January, Donald Trump became something else.
Right. That has been his framing, right, the whole time, as if he wasn't a chaotic president for all 4 years. No,
they did great things for the American people. The Trump-Pence administration, he says with such reverence many times throughout this interview. And then on January 6th, Donald Trump made a mistake.
Right.
He put himself over the Constitution, and he further believed that I, as in my role as vice president, could put him over the Constitution, and I chose instead to keep my oath because that's just the sort of man I am. And I was terribly disappointed that Donald Trump was led, possibly not even, it's not his own doing. It's not because he's a fucking crazy narcissist who only cares about himself and imagines himself to be the president even to this day. But instead it was those dastardly lawyers. Right. He got some very bad advice from some very not well-meaning individuals who led him down this awful path. And I pray for him. I really do. I continue to this day, that he'll see that he was wrong about that. But in the meantime, I think it's up to me to continue this movement that we started back in 2016. Like, there's nobody. He has a coalition of one. It's him and him and his wife. That's it.
And also, he is the second choice to no other candidates. So, like, let's say you're a Trump supporter. You're one of the 50 whatever percent. All these polls are consistently like somewhere in the 50s, right? The second choice, it would likely go with DeSantis, right? Or somebody else, and then somebody else, and then somebody else. Like, you would have to go very far before they get to Pence, right? Trump voters, right? And then you go to the next candidate, DeSantis. Like, the second choice is likely Trump, right? Like, if not DeSantis, I don't mind Trump. Or this other person, or this other person. Like, you would have to get very far down to get to Pence, right? Like, and that's true for all the other, like, nobody has, like, well, if this thing falls apart, I'll go with Pence. Like, so it's not like he can win in that way
If
either.
you're Mike Pence, though, and you sincerely believe that your time on this earth has been divinely appointed, right? Like, this is someone who, at least outwardly, I don't know the man's heart, but seems to really believe that he's here doing God's will, right? For the country. And in fact, to the point where you were going to fail in your re-election bid to become the governor of Indiana,
the governor
right?
of Indiana, yeah.
Right. He's going to be the governor of Indiana again. He was going to fail, and instead, God/Trump plucked him from the obscurity of losing that race, and instead made him vice president. Plausibly, divine intervention. Someone like Mike Pence would continue to believe, and maybe he sincerely believes that God will make him president, because that is ultimately the way that he can best serve on this earth.
Right. I mean, the thing is, like Todd asked him, were it not for that fateful day of the 6th of January, like if, Trump like just sucked it up and just said, I lost, can't win them all, fuck it, I'm going to go play golf and left, right? Would you, and then Trump was like, I'll be back for the next cycle.
Right.
Though, right?
We're going to run it back. Yeah.
Would you, Todd is asking, like, would you be running right now if that fateful day did not happen? And he's like, oh, let historians sort that out. Like, he doesn't want to directly answer that question, but like, he's only at this level, like his profile was raised because Trump plucked him from relative obscurity, right? The reason why he's got the name brand is because of Trump, the guy you're running against. Like, it's just the whole thing is just kind of incoherent.
Right. If Mike Pence had a lane, it was the Liz Cheney lane.
Yes.
And the Republicans threw Liz Cheney out.
Right.
Right? Like,
yeah.
So his unwillingness to really run in the Liz Cheney lane makes the whole thing, as you say, completely incoherent. Right? If there's a lane for a Mike Pence, it is the full-throated denunciation of the entire Trump post-January 6th thing, and he's refused to do it.
Right.
He just says, he's mistaken about things.
Right, he's missed, yeah. I mean, again, message discipline. He could be getting stabbed, and he'll say, oh, no, we saw things differently that day, on that fateful day.
Real quick before we go, I want to play for you a clip from the end of the Slate Political Gabfest.
By the way, I'm 4 episodes behind. I am falling further and further behind on my podcast, but I'll catch up.
To be clear, you say you're a month behind on a topical weekly news show that covers the ephemeral topics that are most important to the news of the week, and then rarely discusses anything from any sort of broader lens. That's the thing that you're a month behind on. There's a segment at the end of the regular Slate podcast, Political Gabfest podcast, called the Slate Plus segment. And this is where they have a conversation about some other topic, and it's only for paying members of Slate, which I don't pay for. So all I got was the preview, and in classic Slate fashion, or at least Gabfest fashion, so much of the content that they talk about is just promoting their friends or other Slate products. So like Plots often is they give recommendations for, like, they do the segment at the end called Cocktail Chatter. It's like, what are you going to be talking about when you're hanging out with your friends and you want to seem interesting at the cocktail party? What are you going to be talking about? And David Plotz inevitably is going to talk about, I have this other job where I have this, I run a podcast network, and he just does a fucking 60-second commercial for his other thing that he runs, right?
But the others usually will have good content, like Dickerson and Emily Bazelon.
Dickerson reliably has good content. Bazelon is very committed to log rolling for whichever of her friends have recently published a book. It's like, as it turns out, I'm reading this book by my college roommate. And I want the 40,000 people who listen to the Slate Gabfest to know about it. Like, yeah, but sure you do. I'm sure it's a great fucking book. It just happens to be written by your college roommate.
That and also I can imagine how it's tempting. Like, hey, I fucking read this book. I'm gonna make further use of this. Like, I'm gonna bring it up in this segment, this throwaway segment at the end. But yeah, Dickerson is usually reliably good.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Slate Plus segment this week is they're going to talk to Joel Anderson, works for Slate. They have another podcast called Slow Burn, and it's all about Justice Clarence Thomas.
Or at least this version of it, right? Because different seasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Slow Burn is many seasons. This is like season 6 or something. I don't know. And this one is about Justice Thomas.
Joel, congratulations on Slow Burn. It's fascinating.
Thanks for having me on.
What do you think that Americans, or broadly, or even you, not know about Clarence Thomas, not see about Clarence Thomas that you now know and see after having spent all this time with him for months?
That's an interesting question. I guess probably there are a lot of, biographical tidbits that are sort of surprising, the wanting to be a priest, the flirtation with left-wing politics when he was in college, that sort of stuff. But I think for me, just personally, and it kind of starts with me going to his mother's home, I kind of didn't realize how rooted in the Black community he was. I think growing up, there was this assumption that he was a creation of white institutions, from Catholic schools, Yale law and the Republican Party, right? The Reagan administration. But no, that's not actually it. He gets into his conservatism through Black conservatives. And when you go home and you talk to the people, all these people, down in Savannah, Georgia, and Pinpoint, Georgia, which is the little community that he's originally from, these people feel connected to him, even if they don't necessarily agree with him politically. And that was just something different for me to sort of grapple with. I just had no idea that this is a person that had grown up around Black people, liked being around them, and still sort of sees himself as part of that community in spite of, the way a lot of people feel about him today.
That was just a snippet from ours.
All right, I'll stop it there.
Wow.
I'm glad you said wow, because I was just bowled over by that commentary by the host of this podcast. I'll let you say why you're wowing.
Okay, first of all, is the host of this is he Black or is he? I can't tell.
Yes, Joel Anderson is Black.
So he is Black. He's a much younger person than Clarence Thomas. So he thinks that a 70-plus-year-old Black man is not rooted in Black America?
You're telling me this motherfucker's Black? Is what Joel Anderson just said.
What? That is absurd. And it's an ass-backwards justification, right? Because of the conclusions he has reached and the ideology that he espouses. He must not be, he's never met a conservative Black person. Does he think Black people are not like people? That they're
right. It's exactly what you just said. Does he think Black people are not like people? Joel Anderson, the guy who Slate paid to do a 4-part podcast series on Black American jurist Clarence Thomas, said, "Oh, I found out he was a human being." Is what he is revealing, right? Is that all up until this point, I'd never considered the possibility that Clarence Thomas was a fully fledged human being because of the color of his skin combined with the peculiar reality of his politics. I did not consider him a full human being. To be clear, Joel Anderson had been doing a giant racism in a profound way. And he said that was the most surprising thing. So, kudos to the gentleman for recognizing that fact. I don't think that's how he would describe what I just described, probably. But for me, what the fuck is wrong with people? that they cannot imagine that because your politics are different than what you believe your politics ought to be, that you are not a fully fledged black American or a fully fledged whatever human being.
Right.
Like it always boggles the mind when I run into it in the wild, because they are just so clearly doing the thing that they believe that they are fundamentally against, right? That they believe they've aligned themselves ideologically and politically and in all of their cultural and personal lives to be opposed to. They're just doing the thing. And this isn't me being like, found a reverse racism, ha ha ha, right? Like, there's no such thing as reverse racism largely in the way that we talk about those sorts of things, but this is just racism. That's all it is there. And it's crazy to me that people don't see it that way.
I don't want to draw it too fine. I don't want to say anything that without knowing any more about this person, this slow burn guy, but like, is it indicative of like his upbringing that he would have that perspective? Like did he, like, cause I'm trying to think, like, how do you...
Well, sure. Everything is indicative of everyone's fucking upbringing.
I know, but like, how can you, I don't know. It just seems like, but for that to be true, like, you don't actually hang out and talk to black people where inevitably you're going to find out, they're very conservative, you know? They're very conservative. Like, you know, like, right, because to be politically black is not anything except to be academically black, right? Like, these notions, like when the woman whose name I'm not permitted by myself to say on this podcast says things like...
Taylor Swift.
No, not Taylor Swift. Nicole Hannah-Jones talks about someone not being politically black because they don't share her politics. She's just referring to a particular ideology that doesn't have actually anything to do with race beyond some degree of correlation that she sees in the world, right? And that's all he's doing here, is that he has spent his time so cloistered in a certain kind of political blackness or a certain kind of progressive politics that he doesn't run into conservative black, like the old ladies and old men who go to church fucking 3 days a week, right? Or who hang out at the gas station, who are not as politically progressive as Joel Anderson would be, certainly.
When was it 2008, the first go around for Obama? Remember California? They had that Prop 8.
Yep.
And
all the black people came out and rejected that.
And rejected that. What? And also, like, in a lot of black communities, there's a lot of pushback with, you know, there's a lot of like anti-gay sentiment in the black community you know, like, what does this slow burn guy think is behind that? Like, the liberal black people are doing this? Like, I mean,
who was the most conservative Democrat running for the presidential nomination in 2020? The most conservative Democrat was Joe Biden. Right. And Joe Biden won because James Clyburn and the African-American population in South Carolina gave him their endorsement.
Right. I don't know who needs to hear this, but, like, you can be black anything. Right, and there are black anything.
I'll tell you who needs to hear it, or needed to hear it before he found out that Clarence Thomas was an actual human being, was Joel Anderson of Slate Podcasts, and he's not alone.
Maybe slow burn is his learning stuff. It takes a while for him to get it, but he'll get there.
You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Head on over to brainiron.com for a show note. If you like, the opening and closing themes of the show were composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com. For more from him, Queens of the Stone Age released a new record on Friday. That's not new Tetramer music, but it is the next best thing.
Oh, have you listened to any?
I haven't gotten through the whole thing yet because I've been... I don't know, I just haven't had time.
I told you he's very busy.
It's a lot of baseball. I was at the field for like 8 hours, I think, or longer than that, 9 or 10 hours the other day on Saturday. Abe, did you make it to the movies this week? There was a big new movie came out, or at least I thought it would be big. It only made like $55 million to take the number one spot. The Flash came out. Did you see that one?
I did, yes. I went to go see it in a packed theater opening night. I went to go see it with my buddy Mike. who's big into cartoon, this comic book stuff. What I do before I watch these comic book related movies is I go to YouTube and I find somebody to explain to me who these people are. Like, who the fuck is Flash? What is his angle? I know he does something fast, but I'm not familiar with him. And so I watched it. It's, like the Spider-Verse thing that was out like a week or two ago, with the exception of that, all the other comic book movies in the recent past, it's the same fucking thing. It's the same. Every, it's like, okay, now this is going to happen. Then the big bad is going to come and it's going to seem very hard to beat. Some lesson will be learned. And then they'll beat them, and then the movie will end, and there'll be some stupid credit midway through that's going to tie it into some other thing. It's like literally the same thing every time. And once again, this Flash, the same thing. So people thought this was going to make a lot of money. It crashed and burned. $55 million sounds like a lot, but this is like a $200-300 million budget kind of movie. Like, they need to make their money back, and this is a very tight next month. This movie is just going to not make anything now, because you can have that Indiana Jones movie that's not going to do that well, but it's going to be the number one movie when it comes out in a couple of weeks. Then you have all of those movies in July, the Barbie, the Mission Impossible, the Oppenheimer. There's so many movies coming out, so there's no opportunity for this movie to make any money in that regard. So just a disastrous outing.
So you're saying it's not good enough to have any sort of legs moving forward.
Right. You need to pop the first weekend, and they're kind of pointing to like, the Flash actor is apparently a piece of shit. Like, he kind of got into some sort of drug fueled kind of violence streak that he had. Like, he's just
Abe, there's a certain segment of the internet that would say you're the piece of shit for misgendering that individual just now.
Who?
So
the Flash.
The Flash is not. He doesn't go by the he hims. He's something else.
Okay, well, the Flash character, the actor, whomever, like, total douche from what I hear. I think not a bad actor. Like, I find him engaging in the he played two versions of himself. Again, they're doing this stupid, I come from a different, just stop doing that, please. Like, just stop doing that, please.
Movies are already an alternate reality, says Abe.
It's just,
don't compound things with more alternate realities.
I really don't like parallel universes either.
It's just,
It's like,
so, but did you enjoy the movie?
Will make
I know
me
you,
not
you,
interested.
You complain about the paint by numbers aspect of the plot as far as modern superhero movie stuff goes, but was it an enjoyable ride?
It was enjoyable enough, but I mean, if I weren't into just like any major opening, I'm there, right? So like, this is not like me saying this is watching your movie does not mean that I am for it. But so like, it's just okay.
Michael Keaton returns to reprise his role as Batman for the first time since 1992. Was that charming and fun, or just stupid?
And they did, he did a thing like to try to revive his mother who died, like in the universe he lived in, and like in the universe he was in, the Batman was the Ben Affleck Batman. Right? And so it's like, oh, don't worry, without causing a disturbance to anything, I'm going to go back and like fix the problem with my mom and I'll be fine. And then he fucks it up and he's now in the Michael Keaton Batman universe, right? And then the movie, he thinks that I fixed all the problems. I can't save my mom, so I'm going to say bye to her. I'm going to get a big cry and I'm going to circle back to my original universe. And then some fancy cars coming. Here's the Batman guy, and out comes the George Clooney Batman. So like he fucked it up somehow, and like the movie ends like that. So it's like they played with the Batmans.
Yeah, and I kind of want to see this movie. I really enjoyed this character.
You're familiar with him, the Flash?
Well, he was in the Justice League movie.
Oh, yeah. As soon as I stop watching the movies, I forget these people. So, like, he didn't leave enough of an impression, so I don't remember.
He stood out for me in Justice League as one of the more enjoyable characters, because I haven't cared for the Ben Affleck Batman very much. But again, I'm more of a natural sucker for the entire DC universe. I love Batman. I love Superman. I want these movies to be good. It has been disappointing to me that they largely haven't been. I don't care about the Wonder Woman rest of it. Like I grew up on Batman and Superman, and I want them to be awesome. And it's a bummer to me that they haven't been. And my understanding is that this movie is an attempt to sort of end the DC universe up to this point, but also sort of explode the DC universe into this new direction. And who knows if they'll succeed in that way. They have the James Gunn guy is taking over to be in charge of it. He was the guy who did the Guardians of the Galaxy for the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
What's interesting is that the standalone movies do well. So like the Robert Pattinson Batman did well. The Joker,
right? And
did
I love
well.
that one.
Right.
I thought that was perfectly fine Batman movie.
But yeah, so like those movies, is Joker part of the DC or Marvel? Where this guy? I guess he's got to be with the Batman.
It's also
right?
DC.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a DC
that
character.
Made a lot of money despite all of the concerns. Like, it's going to turn people into like crazy, violent dudes. Like, remember when that movie?
Right.
I mean, where's the lie?
Yeah.
Another movie that I actually really enjoyed and thought, like, if you take it outside of the stupid culture war context and you just look at it as like, here's a movie to watch. Like, that was a fun movie to watch, and Joaquin was awesome in it.
But if they're blowing it up and trying to retool and just stop this stupid, like, because the Wonder Woman is in this movie too. Like, hey, and by the way, again with the music, she's the only person. Like when Ben Affleck shows up, there's no Batman music. Like every time she shows up, they play the music. It's weird. Here I am, in case you forgot. Here's the music.
It's that fucking riff, man, and I'm going to drop it in right here. That riff is fun. It's good.
But why? Every time I see her, the music played. It's just very odd. But
Abe, every time I let you get 5 words in edgewise throughout this 2-hour podcast, I'm going to play that music in this episode.
Wonder Abe.
Anything else? Did you go to the movies otherwise?
No. I was going to go see something, but I'll watch it next week. But yeah, that was it.
What's coming out? Is Indiana Jones next?
It's the week after. Some movie with Jennifer Lawrence is coming out. It seems... I don't know what it is, but
where she's fucking an 18-year-old or something?
I don't know what the angle is, but like, she's supposed to be the date
it's
of
like
some
a dorky Jew virgin is going to be like his parents want him to become a man or something, and so they hire Jennifer Lawrence to do it.
That's what it is.
Looks stupid. Did we watch anything, or did we just do baseball?
Schwarzenegger, Arnold.
We watched the first hour of the Arnold documentary on Netflix.
Right. Yeah, I'm 2 episodes in because they broke it down to like athlete, actor, and then like American.
Athlete, huh? You're going to go with athlete?
Well, I think they're doing the alliteration. They wanted to keep it in the A's, right? So they did it,
Oh, is that the actual name of the episode?
So they have 3 episodes. One focuses on his athletic pursuits with, oh, look at me, I'm so strong. And then it's the actor pursuit. By the way,
look at me, I'm so strong.
James Cameron makes a few appearances in the second one when he's the actor. And then the third one I haven't seen, but it's when he makes the run for office after he gets. I guess I didn't know he had like
look at me, I'm so strong.
Heart surgery thing, like when his acting career kind of slowed down. And he's like, I'll do politics.
I think it's very weird. He is the same age as my dad, which I didn't know. Like looking at him now, I'm like. And seeing, they timestamp everything, like he was this age and this year. It's like, is he the same age as my dad? I think of him as so much younger. Because in the 90s, my dad was like a middle-aged guy.
Right.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He was, he was older than us when he was doing True Lies.
I know, he was older than us. I thought he was younger than my dad.
Right, but he was like 40-something when he did True Lies. Like he's
he's very old. But also Arnold is fucking great. And
he's great.
He's.
Who doesn't like Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, I was amused in the first episode. Right, sure. A lot of women. I was amused by the fact that he talked about how he didn't believe that his father was his father when he was a kid. Because he felt like such an outsider. And that's something that I think a lot of kids go through at various times, conceivably, that they imagine that their parents are not their parents, that they must be adopted because they don't feel like they belong, or maybe in Arnold's case because he was beaten. And he says that he even went so far as to get the genetics tested to find out if maybe his dad was a visiting American soldier. And I was just struck by that because it's like... Probably this was when he was a politician and was hoping to see if he could run as president, and if there was some sort of like visiting American soldier exception to the natural born American thing. And
I mean, he would be an American then, right? If an American births or he facilitates the birth of somebody.
Yeah, a natural-born American.
Bob also liked that he didn't celebrate his birthday and then did.
Yeah, I found it was very amusing to me. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger at 25 finding out that birthdays are a thing. And then just like from that point forward, like the birthday is very important to Arnold Schwarzenegger. And if you're one of his kids or his girlfriend or his wife or whatever, it's like, no, this is a big day for Arnold every year. You have to be there. Arnold loves his fucking cake. And if Arnold doesn't get his cake on his birthday, it's going to be, he's not going to be mad. He's just going to be really sad, and we do not want that for Arnold. So we're all going to make a big deal of it.
It's not too often you pick up something like that into your 20s. Usually when you're growing up, your formative years, even younger, like, oh, this sticks with you. But yeah, that is kind of unusual.
Birthdays are great. This is my special day. I love it. We're going to have cake and everyone's going to sing me this nice song. It's going to be great. And he's fucking 340 pounds, roided out monster man. It's amazing.
I always forget how big he was during his peak. Like he's
so gross, so weird.
Ridiculous how big he was.
They gloss over like the whole steroids thing very quickly. I mean, it's like
at least you know what?
Everybody was doing it, and so was I. What's else to say?
Yeah, I guess
that at least they admitted. You know, to this day, you'll see like current actors who are clearly on the juice. Maybe for legal reasons they can't admit it, but they go to interviews. They go to like Regis and Catholic, although I don't think that combination has been there in a while. Whomever is doing those morning things. And they'll say, oh, no, I don't do that. It's like chicken and fucking rice or whatever. It's like, no, chicken and rice and steroids. And also effort, you know.
Right. The reason why you can work out 6 hours in the morning and then 3 more hours in the afternoon is because your body is full of drugs and human growth hormone, right? It's not just that, like, anybody can do it if they... No, most people would just die from exhaustion if they worked out for 8.5 hours a day, you asshole. Yeah. It's because you're taking an incredibly high-priced cocktail of drugs and specialty nutritional supplements that allow you to continue to do that.
Right, but you're still putting the effort. So, like, nobody's...
Sure.
Right?
It's not magic,
right?
But it is sort of magic also.
Right.
There was something else that we watched. It wasn't just
Arnold.
Arnold.
I don't remember.
I don't know. We looked at HBO, and there's like fucking nothing on Max. Like it's just...
By the way, I think I mentioned Johnny Depp's kid is on this new show, The Idol, which I'm like 3 episodes in. Apparently, there's only 6 episodes in all. Not a very good show, but if you want to watch like just an absurd, like bad acting, just bad scenes, like the Weeknd, the musician who was like in the Super Bowl halftime show a few years ago, he's putting on quite a performance. Like it is just.
So there's some chatter online about like, is this show a parody or is it just if you failing to be a parody by being so bad at being a parody or something like that?
Well, the thing is, like, I think they're getting at some sort of satire, but like they don't have. I don't know why. I mean, The Weeknd put himself in it because like I think he's a co-creator, so he's just kind of pick me. Like if they picked like a more capable actor, it could work. He's like this parasitic, like, sex cult leader guy who has gotten this, like, Britney Spears type of, like, pop star who's going through some whatever, like, under his spell, right? And so it's just like, oh, fuck your label and your handlers. They don't have their best interest, and he, like, takes over. He fired her, like, chef because he looked at her funny. Like,
but he's not at all plausible in the role of iconic sex god type thing.
He's got like a rat tail, and I don't know who decided that was a good idea, but like he's supposed to be like sinister, and so maybe the rat tail helps with that. But he just looks ridiculous, and he'll say the most like things. It's just if you just want to watch a train wreck, like I recommend it.
We watched something on, or we almost, I know what we discovered browsing through Max. Because there's the Dr. Pimple Popper show.
We didn't watch that.
No, we didn't watch it. I'm saying we found another show called like Dr. Backcracker or something like that. There's this whole fucking show about people who go to the chiropractor and get their backs cracked, and you just watch the fucking thing to hear the sound of other people's backs cracking. It's like, look, I crack my back and my neck and my knuckles just as enjoyably as the next guy, but I can't imagine building a whole hour of television around listening to some chiropractor crack somebody else's neck. What is the pleasure being derived there?
Are the patients like playing it up? Oh, this is having huge live constant. Oh,
I didn't debase myself by.
I will debase.
I went to the more info button or whatever to find out more info, but I did not allow it to play from that point on.
I'm trying to find what we watched.
I'm sure it obviously isn't worth talking about if we can't come up with it at this point. But I know we played some Dr. Mario, and I got super mad at you for kicking my ass like 4 games in a row.
Bob stopped being good at that.
Oh.
It's we go and it's very streaky, this Dr. Mario game. Anyway, Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for tonight. We'll talk to you next time.
Later.
Said the sort of nonsense that he usually said, and then people online were mad about it, and so Rogan was like, hey, come on the show and debate RFK and we can have an honest conversation about things. It's like, it's probably not going to be good for anybody.
Probably, no.
Let's just go to bed.
I know, we should go to bed.
Some of us have to work 10 hours tomorrow.
Some of us have to coach a Little League playoff game tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe. You might, in the evening, have to do that.
It takes a lot of preparation.
I have to send 2 emails tomorrow. That's got a big, very easy day tomorrow.
When do you go to Aruba?
July 6th through the 9th. It's like a couple of days after the 4th.
Okay.
Actually, that's another stupid thing I'm doing. I have off everything except for 1 day that week, too. I keep doing this. I should just take the whole week off.
Do that. No, it's
no,
good.
They need you in there.
Yeah,
they need you in there that day.
It'll be like you're not even there.
That's right.
I love those days. Like when I come in for just one person, sneak in, it's like I'm not even doing it.
It's like 80% of Abe's days at work anyway. It's like he's not even there.
My being at home 5 days a week has started already. I do have to go in to get a new laptop because my 4-year-old laptop is not cutting it, I guess. I don't know. But that's the only reason why I'm going in.
Abe's like, don't replace the laptop. That 20-minute boot time is 20 minutes for me. That's my time with the CBS morning show as that laptop goes through its machinations.
I am a month behind on that. I think I may just bail and just start from this week. I'm so far behind.
That's good. You should do that.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Good night. Podcast. I love to yell about things that piss me off. So do you asshole. That's why you're here. You love to see me yell about things that piss me off. You get a great big kick out of it. Especially when you think I'm crazy and wrong about it, right? It's fun. It feels good. Yeah. I get it.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.